first sharing the Dharma day of the year. And how many folks are here for the first time? Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. We are a Buddhist monastery. Sravasti Abbey was started in 2003 by our founder and abbess, Venerable Thubten Chodron. Her and 2 cats were the first residents, and now there are just over 20 monastics who call the Abbey home. And our Venerable Thubten Chodron is not here today. She is giving teachings in Europe. And so we will have teachings this morning after a meditation with our other senior teacher, Venerable Sangye Khadro, who has also been ordained for, I think, over 50 years. So we are quite fortunate to have 2 incredible teachers here at the Abbey. My name is Thubten Munlam, and I've been here for about 5 years. And so I want to just let you know a couple housekeeping things. There is assisted listening available in the back of the room. There's some headsets if that is something that would be helpful for you. There are bathrooms just out this door and down the hall, and a water fountain as well. And something that we can all do is to silence our phones so that we can keep it a nice space where we can listen to what's being presented instead of other various noises. There are 2 local properties that are on the market here on Country Lane. One of them is not yet listed, and so if you are looking for any sort of information or are curious about that, you can connect with Venerable Samten. So this morning, we're going to start with a guided meditation with Venerable Semkye. And after that, Venerable Sangye Khadro will come up and give a teaching from a book that Venerable Chodron wrote called Working with Anger. After that, we will have a potluck lunch. And then after lunch, we will have we'll have a discussion group where we get to really kind of digest the teachings and see how they apply to our life. And so I hope that you all can join us all day for all of those activities. And so now we can, I guess one more thing first is that before different activities and during the activities, we will sometimes make bows. We will recite different recitations. You are welcome to join us in those activities if you feel comfortable, but there is no pressure or expectation for any of that. So please just come and participate as you are comfortable. And so now we can all rise and welcome Venerable Semkye to lead the meditation.
So folks, I will be making 3 prostrations, so join me if you wish. Once again, we're not bowing to the statues, we are bowing to the teachings of the Dharma. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Sushriye, Namo Uttamashriye, Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Sushriye, Namo Uttamashriye, Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Sushriye, Namo Uttamashriye, Soha. So once again, welcome. It's been a long time. Let's see, November 23rd is the last time we had a sharing the Dharma Day. So what we're going to do this morning is kind of a little bit of a warm-up, is that we are on chapter 5 of this wonderful book called Working with Anger, written by our teacher, Venerable Chodron. And there's some really wonderful points to kind of bring us from November up to speed. That'll kind of be a good way to set the tone before Venerable Sangye Khadro comes and continues with the chapter. The chapter is called Recognizing Anger and Its Causes. So this morning we're going to talk about when do we know we're angry? There are some clues, and so Venerable Chodron kindly has a few pointers in the chapter that we're going to think about. So first, let's just kind of get into a position that you're going to be comfortable in for about 45 minutes or so. Once again, the whole point is that the body does have a very, very close relationship to the mind, so how it sits and how it holds the space is very important on how open the mind and receptive the mind can be. So we want to make sure that our spine is straight but not tight. Imagining a thread coming out the top of the head and somebody's gently pulling on that so that the discs are elongated, but you don't feel like you're tight. If you can sit at the edge of your seat so you don't have the back of the chair supporting you, that will be even better for the spine. We have our hands in our laps below our bellies, with the right palm on the left palm with the thumbs touching, right below the belly. Our shoulders are level, so they're not hunched or sticking back out. Our chin is a little tucked, not so much that we're going to doze off, but if our chins are up high, our minds tend to be a little excited, where if the chin is a little tucked, the mind gets a little more settled down. Now it's best to keep the eyes slightly open, not looking at anything in particular on the floor in front of you. It just helps to let some light in without your eyes being totally open, which can be a distraction, or totally closed, where we could nod off. So see if that works for you. And then the tongue should be up on against the upper top teeth. If you say the word mine, that's where the tongue just naturally lands. It helps to, as far as the buildup of saliva. So see if you can get the tongue on the upper palate. So there should be a level of ease in the body, but not like a lethargy, not a heaviness. So make any slight, adaptations you need or accommodations to really feel like you're embodied in this space where you're sitting. And then before we begin any practices or activities at the Abbey, we try to set a motivation or an intention. And so this morning, what's really alive for me is I've been pretty, maybe inspired at some level at the whole space experience of Artemis II, going farther than any human beings have ever traveled before in that little capsule. Due to unbelievable technology, science, genius, collaboration, physics, whatever makes that possible, to rejoice that the human mind has that capacity to do that. And for the courageous men and women who, took that trip, it's kind of always adds a sort of an inspiration to our minds. What's so ironic about that is currently we have between 40 and 50 armed conflicts on this little blue planet of ours. So on one hand, we're inspired by the capacity of the human mind and the human beings who collaborate and work together. And at the same time, we're fighting each other. And so one of the things that I continually come back to is that there is not just this incredible world outside of ourselves and in the universe, the galaxies and beyond, but from the Buddha's point of view, there is a whole different landscape, a whole different universe inside ourselves that we are sometimes more apathetic or complacent or not as interested to explore as we are the limits of space, where in fact there is a potential for a vastness and a clarity in that mind and heart of ours that is beyond any type of universe or galaxy. But because we don't spend a lot of time exploring that inner landscape, things start to happen in there because we don't understand our own minds and hearts. We don't understand how we think and why we think what we do, so we get really, really confused. And as a result, sometimes we end up having these wars inside of ourselves with our anger, our greed, our jealousy, our pride, and then it kind of spills out into the world, and we get ourselves into a lot of trouble with the rest of the living beings on this planet. So today, as we really look into this very dangerous mental state called anger, which is the causes, if not all the conflicts in the world, a lot of them, is to come to this day with curiosity and a willingness to explore, well, how do I actually think? How does anger arise? What are its causes? To be able to look into our minds and hearts like we're exploring this vast internal world, maybe more deeply than we have in a while. Because as that universe is explored and we open up our possibilities of what we can actually do with that mind of ours, cultivate these beautiful qualities that just enhance the clarity and the capacity of our human experience, and that we have the guidance of the Buddha's teachings to be able to figure out what are the causes for happiness and what are the causes that bring suffering. Why do I get angry? What's the story I'm telling myself? And so today, may we do that together in harmony to be able to understand our own minds and hearts, which then connects us even more with all the other living beings who, just like us, want to be happy and not suffer, and to really grow our good qualities, to be able to reduce and eventually eliminate all those warring factions inside of our own minds and hearts, so that we can also be able to promote and to bring peace to the world, not only to ourselves, but to all living beings. So let's set that as our intention today. And then we usually do some prayers before we do a breathing meditation, a little bit of a meditation on the topic today. So we'll have some prayers up on the screen. Feel free to follow along. I'm not who's leading. Yeah.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger.
So put yourself back into the meditation posture, your hands below your belly, your eyes slightly open, shoulders level. And then for the next few minutes, we're going to just use the breath as our object of meditation. Something we all have, something we do thousands and thousands of times a day. But to really pay attention and to watch it come into the body, turn and go out of the body without getting distracted is quite a profound practice. So you want to either put your attention at your belly, the rising and falling of your belly, or a little bit more of a subtle place to track is right below your nostrils, above your upper lip. And what we're trying to attempt here, using it as the object of meditation, is to watch the breath go in and how the body responds to that with an inhalation, gently turns and goes out. And everybody has, when they're at ease, they have their own particular breathing pattern. It should be quiet, at ease, relaxed, but clear. It shouldn't send you into sleep. It should send you into just a sense of ease. And so the whole point of trying to use the breath as an object is you're going to find right away that within a few seconds your mind's going to either be wandering to the past, wandering to the future, something that you might hear or something you might smell. So what we need to do is gently become aware of that and bring our attention back to the breath. So the mind's a little bit like a puppy that we're trying to paper train. And when it wanders off the newspaper, we don't beat it and yell at it. We just gently pick it up and put it back on the paper. And so the mind is like that in relationship to the breath. And what we're trying to do is get the mind to be stable with some clarity. So when we do the analytical meditation on the topic this morning, the mind will be bright and willing to listen. So let's just take a few minutes to follow the breath. So without disturbing the body posture or disturbing whatever settledness in the mind that you've attained in the past few minutes, we're going to gently segue to what we call an analytical meditation or checking meditation, where we get to use the mind's intelligence to investigate some points about the teachings. And so for this chapter 5, recognizing anger and its causes, it begins with Venerable asking the question, well, how do we know when we're angry? And that there are some helpful ways to identify anger as it's arising, or maybe it's so that it doesn't become like the point of no return, and now we're then under its control. For many of us, it's very obvious when we're angry. We yell, we scream, we stop, we slam doors, we withdraw into some cold silence. But what we're trying to do here with this exploration is to see if we can catch it before it gets too big. And the body and the mind have a way to give us some clues, some indicators that say we're heading in that direction. So just think about, as I share these points, just think, how can I use this? Is that true for me? I haven't noted that before. Maybe that's interesting, just to respond to these questions and points. So the first one, Venerable says, when you're trying to meditate, like just the way we did just right now, doing a breathing meditation or some kind of meditation, what kind of distraction takes your attention away? Is the mind going to the past or the future? Is there a story that begins to run about that past or future? Try and recall a common distraction in your practice that you would identify as a form of agitation or irritation, something unsettling. What pulls you away from your meditation? The second thing that Venerable Chodron asks us to look at is to check our thoughts. Is there an emotional tone, or she uses the word flavor of the mind, that many times has anger beneath the surface? Anger comes in a lot of different forms, everything from irritation to hatred to jealousy, resentment, belligerence. identifying the flavor of our mind can give us some information on what is going on in it that we may not immediately recognize. So just like right now, check the flavor of your mind. When you get angry or frustrated or resentful, what's the flavor or the tone of your mind? And then she asks, what prompts bad moods for you? Maybe you didn't get what you wanted, or you got something you didn't want, or someone was doing something that you didn't approve of, or even just looking at the news. She says, just, investigate the pattern of our moods. Sometimes they are around familiar situations or people, trigger very familiar moods or behaviors. So think of one or two situations where you find yourself more tender, more vulnerable to the mood changing because of who you're with or what's going on. And then not only does the mind give us clues that anger may be arising, but so does our body. It gives us information that we may be getting angry. Our heart rate increases, our body gets hot, our jaw gets clenched, we get red in the face, our stomach gets tight. Can you recognize any particular physical sensations when you get angry? Or when it's beginning to arise? What happens to the body for you? And so the conclusion is just to recognize that when we get to note when anger begins to arise in our minds, that information will help us to perhaps be able to cut it off at the pass, reduce it, mitigate it in some way, and eventually transform it through the practice of a very powerful antidote to anger, which is fortitude. But being able to really know our minds well enough to be able to know when anger is beginning to arise will be one of the most beneficial practices to be able to avoid the painful results that come when we get angry. This is a really compassionate practice to do for ourselves, not just for others. So they're not the objects of our anger, but just the suffering and the pain that anger generally causes us internally. So this is an extremely compassionate practice to find a way to mitigate, reduce our anger. And so at the end of any type of meditation or practice or offering service or anything that we do here at the Abbey, we have the two bookends to our life here. We have the motivation on the front end, and then we dedicate on the back end, sort of protecting whatever virtue and wisdom, kindness, clarity that we've attained to be able to be part of the causes for our ultimate happiness and to be able to be of the greatest benefit to others. So we'll do our dedication prayer, which will be up on the screen.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
All right. Thank you, Venerable Semkye. And we can all rise as Venerable Semkye leaves. We'll now take a short break. You are welcome to circumambulate the Buddha Hall. There is a beautiful path. We'll try to keep the energy calm and contemplative in here. And if you want to have a conversation, you can go into the lobby and do that. We will come back in about 15 minutes for the teachings at 11 o'clock. And there will be a conch blown outside so that you can come gather. And a bell will ring in here so we can all gather and be ready for that. lead us in some chanting in just a moment to help us settle our minds. And if you are sitting in a cushion and you find that that is really uncomfortable, you are welcome to move to a chair. And also, after the teaching, there might be an opportunity for some questions and answers. And if you do ask a question, please wait for someone to hand you a microphone. And that way, everyone in the room can hear you, and also our online audience can hear as well. And so you are welcome to join us in chanting if you like. And if you are comfortable and able, you're also welcome to stand to welcome Venerable Khadro.
Taya tao mune mune maha mune soha. 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 Taya tao mune mune maha mune soha.
Please be seated. So let's take a few minutes to resettle ourselves and remember our positive motivation for what we are doing. So just sit quietly, and if your mind has wandered away from here and is thinking about other things, the past, the future, and so on, so let go of those thoughts. You can always pick them up again later, but really try your best to keep your mind right here, right now, on what we are doing. and renew your positive, altruistic motivation for being here. A simple way of doing that is just to generate the wish that what we're doing here will be as beneficial as possible to as many people as possible, ourselves and others. So some of you might be here for the first time, is that correct? Yes, so great. Thank you for coming. And so this is the first sharing the Dharma Day for this year. Normally this event is once a month, and it's Venerable Chodron who usually gives the talk, but she's away right now, so I'm filling in for her. And she usually goes through a book, reading a certain number of pages or paragraphs each month, and gradually, after a few years, gets to the end. And so last year she started reading this book called Working with Anger that she wrote. And so we're just, a little ways into the book, and I'll just pick up from where she left off last time. But for those who are new, and you might be new to Buddhism if you haven't read books or heard anything about Buddhism before, just a few things like by way of introduction. So the Buddha was very, very compassionate. He really cared about people and wanted people to be happy and to not suffer. And through his own experience, he came to know what type of actions and what type of thoughts bring happiness, are more conducive for happiness, and which ones bring suffering. So he figured that out on his own, and then taught how others could do the same. So that's really the basis of his teachings, is how to have less suffering and how to have more happiness. And what he discovered is that there are certain states of mind, emotions, we could call them emotions, disturbing emotions, that are the cause of suffering. And ourselves, when they come up in our mind, they disturb our mind, they cause us to suffer. And when we get caught up in those emotions and start acting out of those emotions, then they can also cause suffering to others. And one of those, probably the main one, is anger or hatred. And I think this is well known in the West. It seems that in the last few decades, there has been a lot of research done, and books written, and programs developed to help people manage their anger, right? Anger management courses that are sometimes required for people who've committed a crime out of anger. And so it seems to be quite well known in the West that anger is harmful. It's harmful for our health, harmful for our mind, our mental health, and it's harmful for society. When people get angry, they can do horrible, horrible things. And also on the global scale, we can see, the horrible destructive effects of anger and hatred. And so in Buddhism, there are lots of tools or methods that we can use to work on our anger, deal with anger, and reduce anger. manage anger. And I haven't done an anger management course, so I don't know what they teach, but probably some similarities between what we find in Buddhism. But one thing that's probably different in Buddhism is that we believe it's possible not just to manage anger, but to completely get rid of it altogether. So I don't know if that view exists in the West. I've heard at least some people believe that our brain is like hardwired to have anger. And so we can learn how to manage it, but we can never really get rid of it. I don't know if that's the view or not. But according to Buddhism, that's not true. It is possible to eliminate anger. I mean, it's not easy, of course, and it takes time. But the Buddha did it. He got rid of his anger, and lots of others have been able to do that as well. But at least in the beginning, we learn ways of working with our anger, managing our anger. So there's a lot of very useful tools in Buddhism for doing that. So we are in the book, and there are copies of this book if you're interested in the book Nook. So we are on chapter 5 of the book, which talks about how we can recognize our anger. I think you just did a meditation on that, because it's not always obvious, not always easy to recognize. And then the causes of anger. So we're going to start looking at that. And so it's really helpful to understand the causes of anger, because it's not a permanent thing. It's not something that's always there. We can see that for ourselves, just looking at our own mind, our own experiences. There's times when we're angry, other times when we're not. We feel peaceful. Right? So we just watch our experience, we can see that it comes and goes. So when it comes, how come? Where does it come from? And how does it come up? Okay, so Buddhism has a lot of explanation about this, causes and conditions. The first cause, the main cause, is the seed of anger. That's what we're going to look at today. And so just like in nature, now it's springtime and people are planting seeds in their garden, and they're starting to grow, produce little plants and flowers and so on. So similar with what happens in nature, you have a seed, but the seed by itself isn't going to grow. Right? You just put the seed on the table. It's not going to turn into a plant. It has to be in the right environment, the right conditions. So you need soil and water and sunshine and heat. So when you have all those conditions together, the seed will be able to grow and produce a plant. So it's similar with anger and other emotions. We have within our mind a seed of anger, but for anger to come up and actually become part of our experience, then it requires certain conditions. So I don't know how far we'll get today into this subject, but this is what is coming next in the book. So it's really helpful, because if we can understand what are the conditions, we have this seed of anger in our mind, and then if we can understand what are the conditions that nourish that seed so that it comes up and we have an experience of anger, then we can work with those conditions and try to not have them, try to avoid those conditions. And in that way, there's less chance that anger will come up in our mind. So that's one way of working with anger, just trying to prevent it coming up in the first place. Because once it comes up, it's much harder to deal with than, if it's just very small or in the seed form. So I'll talk for a while, and I'll leave some time at the end for questions. And not just talk, I'm going to read from the book and then talk. So we're on page 45 at the bottom. The heading here is the seed of anger. From a Buddhist viewpoint, anger is not always present in our mind. We have many emotions, attitudes, cognitions, and so forth, all arising and falling away. So this is something we can see when we practice meditation and also cultivate mindfulness, more mindfulness, and introspective awareness. So we can we get more familiar with our mind and what's going on in our mind, and we can see that these different emotions and thoughts come and go. When the mental factor of anger is manifest in our mind, we are angry. When that anger subsides, the seed of anger still remains in our mind stream, but this is the potential of anger, not the mental factor of anger, not a state of mind or a consciousness. Thus, while the potential exists to get angry in the future, we may not be actively angry at present. So Buddhism has a very extensive explanation of the mind, also known as consciousness. And just briefly, what we understand by that, the mind is not something produced by the brain, as many people in the West believe. It's separate from the brain, but there is a relationship, an interdependent relationship between the mind and the brain and also our body. So they do affect each other. What happens in our body will affect our mind. When we're sick, for example, then we might become grumpy and unhappy and have low mental energy and lack of clarity. So what's going on in the body will affect our mind, but what goes on in the mind will also affect our body. Like when we get angry, our face can turn red, we feel tense, and so on. So there's certain physiological effects of anger or other emotions in our mind. So our mind and our body do affect each other, influence each other, but they're still not the same thing. So according to Buddhism, mind or consciousness is something non-material, non-physical, not made of particles, no material substance there like atoms or molecules and so on. It's totally non-physical, non-material. And it's that part of us that is aware. Okay, so our just sense of awareness, of thinking, remembering, perceiving, like seeing and hearing and so on, and all of our emotions. So the term mind or consciousness is kind of an umbrella term that covers all those different kinds of experiences. And it's ever present. It's always going, always doing something 24/7, even when we're asleep. We talk about unconsciousness, but in fact, there's never a time when there's no mind or no consciousness going on. Even in deep sleep, the mind is doing something, experiencing something. And so it's like continuously going, and it's also continuously changing. It's never the same from one moment to the next. It can be compared to a stream or river that's always flowing and always changing. So we can see this when we look at our mind and we watch our mind in meditation. We can see that different things come and go, thoughts come, they go, emotions come and go, sensations come and go. So that's just how the mind is. Everything comes and goes, and it's totally impermanent, always changing. And then within the mind, there's many different kinds of experiences. So this is it's kind of complicated in a way to talk about all the different kinds of experiences of the mind. But in a very simple way, general way, we can say that some of these experiences are positive in the sense that they are conducive for happiness and for our own happiness, but also the happiness of others. For example, love. Love or loving kindness. So when that is present in our mind, we feel good, we feel happy, right? It's a good feeling. And then the way we act with other people, when we have that in our mind, when we can relate to somebody else with love, with kindness, it probably makes them feel good as well. Maybe not always, but usually, we like being treated with kindness, so other people do too. So that's an example of one aspect of the mind that is conducive for happiness and peace. And then there are other aspects of the mind, other types of experience in the mind that are just the opposite. They cause unhappiness, they cause tension, and are bad for us, like anger. It's bad for our health, bad for our mind. And when we relate to someone else with that state of mind, when we're angry at someone, or showing our anger towards someone, that probably doesn't make them feel very good. We know it's like being on the receiving end of that. So that's an example of a state of mind that's conducive for unhappiness and problems and suffering. But anyway, just understand that the mind is always changing, never exactly the same from one moment to the next. So anger is something that comes and goes, as we just saw. And even when it's not there in a manifest form, we're not feeling angry, but there's still the seed of anger in our mind. So we'll go on and look at more about that. The seed of anger is to be distinguished from a low-grade hostility that may affect many aspects of our life. The latter, low-grade hostility, is a small degree of manifest anger that we fail to identify because our introspective alertness is not highly developed. As with all anger, it does not permeate everything we do. It is manifest sometimes, and in seed form other times. As we meditate and are able to identify our mental factors more quickly and easily, we will consciously recognize the presence of low-grade anger that was previously unobserved. This gives us a great advantage in dealing with it. Okay, so low-grade hostility. So that could be feeling not like very strong anger, but just a feeling of hostility towards a particular person, right? There's some person we really don't like, or maybe a situation we don't like, a place we don't like, or whatever. And so there's kind of a subtle degree of this hostility or aversion there. And we may not even be aware of it. It might affect our behavior. But even if someone says, "You look like you're angry," we may say, "No, I'm not angry." But, there's this kind of negative feeling, negative energy there. And so she's saying that isn't the same as the seed of anger, because this low-grade hostility can sometimes manifest. It's present in our mind. It's really there, even if we don't recognize it or we don't admit it. But the seed of anger is something else. It's not actual anger, but more like a seed, just like with seeds we plant in the garden. A seed and the plant are different, right? The seed has the potential to turn into a plant and produce tomatoes and so on. But but it's not the same as the plant. So in a similar way, the seed of anger isn't an actual experience of anger, but it's more like the potential. The potential is there for it to turn into actual anger. From a Buddhist viewpoint, the seed of anger has been with us since birth. We were born with a seed of anger. So this is, maybe difficult to accept, but I think people sometimes blame their anger on their parents, right? I had an angry father or an angry mother, or both were angry, and that's why I am angry. Yeah, it's because of them. I got it from them. Well, that's kind of unfair. It may be true that they were angry a lot, and that may have influenced us adversely. But if we weren't born with the seed of anger already there in our mind, then we wouldn't have experienced anger as a child. So the way Buddhism would view that is we're born with the seed of anger, and then depending on the conditions we meet, like our family, our parents, teachers, classmates at school, and so on. So the conditions we meet will affect that, will trigger the anger in our mind, but it doesn't come from them. And so where it comes from, according to Buddhism, this is a big story, but Buddhism says, we had another life before this one, and another life before that one, and so on and so on and so on, back ad infinitum. This is a hard one. But yeah, Buddhism says our mind has always been existing, and as long as it's been existing, we've had the seeds of anger and other disturbing emotions in our mind. And I know that's hard to accept, it's hard to understand even, but that's how it's explained. Yeah, so anyway, we already have within us the seed of anger. When we come into this life, we start this life. It's not that our mind is like a blank slate, completely pure and innocent, but we come into this life with, lots of seeds. To get angry, to have attachment, and also to have good experiences, to have love and kindness and generosity and so on. So we have lots of seeds, mixed seeds in our mind right from birth. And then those seeds get triggered by the different people we meet and different experiences we have. But the seeds are already there. And this is helpful in some ways, because when we find ourselves getting angry, we may say things like, "Oh, you make me so angry," or "He makes me so angry," or "That person makes me so angry." So what we're saying there is that it's the other person's fault. If I'm angry, it's somehow I got it from them. They put it into me. They made me get angry. I'm like totally innocent and pure, and they came along and put anger in my mind. And so if we view it in that way, then we can justify being angry and blaming and putting all the blame on them. And that isn't helpful. Right? It isn't helpful to blame others for our anger. And we can see that not everybody gets angry in the same way we do. Like there may be a certain situation or certain event happens, and we get really angry about that. But somebody else doesn't, right? Somebody else doesn't get angry. So why is that? That's something to look at, something to consider. If the anger is really coming from over there, from that person or those people or that situation, if that is causing anger to arise in my mind, then how come it doesn't happen to him and to her? So maybe there's something about me, something about my mind that is causing me to get angry. Yeah? So this can be very helpful to take more responsibility for our mind, our way of thinking, our way of reacting, rather than pointing our finger out there, over there. It's their fault. Because we can work on our mind. This is, like just in a practical sense. We can work on our mind. We can work on our thoughts and our feelings and our attitudes. But if we think we can change other people, right? I mean, we can try, but chances are it won't work. So if we're always pointing our finger out there at others, and as the source of our anger, then that's just going to make us more frustrated, because we're not going to be able to change other people and other situations. But we can change this one. And if we can change this one, we'll find a lot more peace, a lot more happiness. So, yeah, being able to accept that my anger is coming from the seed of anger in my own mind, that is very, very helpful, very practical. And it doesn't mean then we should blame ourselves and think, oh, I'm a horrible person because I have the seed of anger in my mind. Right? That's not appropriate. I mean, we didn't choose to be this way, right? I don't think anyone chooses to have anger in their mind, right? It's not something we decided and created the causes for. It's just how we were born. Buddhism says it's because we're not enlightened. We haven't reached enlightenment the way the Buddha did. We have the potential. We can do it. We can reach enlightenment, but we're not there yet. And not being unenlightened just means, yeah, we have these seeds of disturbing emotions in our mind, like anger. But the good news is that they are impermanent. They are transitory. And there are antidotes we can use to reduce them and eventually overcome them and be free of them. So it's not a hopeless situation to feel, despair about. And we can see, by trying out these methods, we can see that, oh, this works, this helps. I am less angry than I used to be. I can say that 100%. I was very angry when I was young. I still get angry sometimes, but not like before. And even when it does come up, I know how to deal with it. I can manage it, so it doesn't last very long. So if you try out these methods and then you can see, yeah, this really works, this really helps, then that can give you confidence that if I keep doing it, if I keep working on these methods, I can reduce it even more and more and more and more. And gives you hope. One day I can be free of it. So that was a bit of a digression. But yeah, I was talking about how helpful it is to be able to accept that it isn't other people's fault if we get angry. Right? Other people can trigger our anger. They kind of water the seed. They provide the water, the sunshine, the heat, all the conditions for the anger to come up. But if we didn't have the seed of anger in our mind, then even all the water and all the sunshine wouldn't produce anger, which is the case with the Buddha. They say, someone who's a Buddha, someone who's enlightened, they don't get angry. And there's stories in the Buddha's life of, situations where an ordinary person would get angry, but he didn't. He maintained calmness and love and compassion towards others. So, anyway, continuing. So I'll just reread what I read before. From a Buddhist viewpoint, the seed of anger has been with us since birth and even before, since we accept past lives. That's according to Buddhism. I don't know about all of you, but Buddhism says we have past lives, and so anger was there in our past lives as well. So we just inherited it from our previous lives. Anger and its seed are not the nature of our mind. They are like clouds that obscure the open spaciousness of the sky. So that's a really beautiful analogy that's used in the Buddhist teachings. They say that our mind, the nature of our mind, the real nature of our mind, it can be compared to the sky. Not today, but sometimes there's just no clouds, no fog, no pollution in the sky. It's just like crystal clear, bright. Or if you go in an airplane, you go up, I don't know how high, 10,000, 20,000 feet. Up there, no clouds, no pollution. It's just so clear and spacious. It just goes on forever. So they say our mind is similar to that in the sense that it's clear by nature. It's clear and pure, unpolluted. But unfortunately, because we haven't yet cleaned it up, we haven't done the work to, clean up our mind and make it enlightened, then there are these clouds that come. Clouds and pollution, like anger, greed, selfishness, jealousy, these sort of disturbing emotions. So they are transitory, just like the clouds and the fog and the pollution in the sky are not always there. They come and go. So in a similar way, anger and the other disturbing emotions come and go in our mind. They're not permanently there. They're not always there. And the pure, clear nature of our mind is always there, just temporarily obscured. So what we need to do, and this is what we do in Buddhism, is try to get in touch with that pure nature of our mind and make that manifest. Anger is based on the ignorance misconceiving the nature of reality. When we generate the wisdom understanding the nature of reality, we are able to gradually erase anger and its seed from our mental continuum so that they can never arise again. Eliminating all destructive emotions and disturbing attitudes in this way is the purpose of Buddhist practice. So, anger and the other disturbing emotions can be traced to ignorance or confusion. This is another state of mind we have from beginningless time. And it's basically not knowing the true nature of things, not seeing reality, not seeing things as they are. And so because of that basic ground of ignorance or confusion, then there arise all these other disturbing emotions like anger and greed and selfishness and so on. And and it is possible to eliminate this ignorance by developing wisdom. Wisdom is the opposite, the antidote, the medicine to cure our mind of ignorance. And when we develop that wisdom, that will enable us to eliminate these disturbing emotions. And that's what the Buddha did and others have done. And it is possible for us to do that as well. But that's not easy. Developing wisdom is quite difficult. So in the meantime, while we're still under the influence of ignorance, then it's useful to learn other tools, other methods for working on reducing anger. So anyway, that section explains the kind of root cause of anger, ignorance, and then having the seed of anger in our mind. And now the book will go on to talk about some of the conditions that can make it likely for us to get angry. That's like the water and the sunshine and so on that nourish the seed of anger. So one of these is habit or familiarity. So the next section is called the habit of anger. We are all familiar with the power of habit and the difficulty of breaking a bad habit. In addition to ordinary habits, such as taking the same route to work every day, we also have emotional habits. Some people have a strong habit of becoming angry. Their energy easily goes in that direction because in the past they have not cultivated patience by applying the antidotes to anger. Right? So it's possible that you started developing this habit in childhood. Maybe in your family, people were getting angry all the time and yelling and screaming and throwing things and so on. And so easy to pick up, the habits of the people around us and behave that way as well. So, yeah, this might have started early in our life. In fact, I think probably most of us, when we're little kids, we throw tantrums. Did you ever throw a tantrum? So we don't get our way. We don't get what we want. Our younger brother or sister gets something and we didn't get it. And so, yeah, yelling and screaming and turning red in the face and making a big scene. So that's quite normal for children. And so we can probably remember times when we were small that we got angry, and then many other times as well. So we may have a habit of being angry since many years. To begin to counteract our habits of resentment, frustration, and so forth, it is helpful to look inside and observe our emotional patterns, as there are particular topics that inevitably provoke agitation. Are there particular topics that inevitably provoke agitation in us? Do we habitually feel angry in certain types of situations? Noticing these reactions, we can do further research and ascertain exactly what our mind is projecting and fearing. Then we can rebalance our view, making it more realistic. So she's talking about just watching our experiences and trying to notice what kind of situations provoke our anger, what kind of people provoke our anger, what kind of topics of conversation provoke our anger, push our anger buttons. So what pushes our buttons? Yeah. So she says here, do further research. I don't think she means research on the internet, asking ChatGPT. I would be careful about that. I heard about some people being advised to commit suicide. Yeah? Is that true? That's amazing. I can't believe it. Yeah, so be careful about AI. I think she's talking about research into our own mind, into our own experiences. And I don't think ChatGPT can do that. They can't read your mind and tell you what's going on in your mind. So we need to do that ourselves. And the tools are mindfulness and introspection. So mindfulness is just being aware of what's going on moment by moment, especially internally. What kind of thoughts, what kind of feelings are happening, what's happening in our body. So just being aware of that, and then introspective alertness is able to recognize when something is wrong, right? Something isn't quite right. Like I'm feeling irritated, I'm feeling impatient, I want to hit somebody in the face or something like that. Noticing the negative things, the trouble thing, like a security guard in a bank who's kind of just, walking around, checking out what people are doing, looking out for trouble. Okay? They're trained to be on the lookout for trouble and then, intervene and try to stop trouble. So introspective alertness is like that. It's like the internal security guard that looks out for trouble and then tries to stop ourselves from getting into trouble. So these are mental factors. So we already have them, but we can cultivate them further, develop them really well, and that will help us to recognize, what triggers our anger, our irritation, our frustration, and so on. And then that can help us to work on either avoiding those situations or changing our perspective, changing our way of thinking. That will help us avoid getting angry in those situations. There are things we can do about that. And then it says, we may also be habituated to expressing our anger in particular ways that often make the situation worse. For example, Janet becomes frustrated when her plans don't turn out the way she would like and vents her anger by complaining to family and friends. The more habituated she is to grumbling, the more she feeds her own dissatisfaction. So is that something you ever do? You're unhappy about something and you want to tell everybody about it. Or you want your family, your friends to know what so-and-so did. And it's like complaining and grumbling. And does that help? Is it helpful to do that? So it says here that this just increases their unhappiness or dissatisfaction, and it may make them unhappy and dissatisfied as well. They may get angry as well. So I think, if you are feeling really frustrated about something, I think it's okay to talk to others, but there's a different way of talking about it. You might say, go to a good friend and say, this thing happened and I'm really upset about it, I'm really angry about it, and I'm having a hard time managing my anger. Could you help me? If we talk about it, maybe you can help me to deal with my anger. So that's a different way than complaining and grumbling. You're asking for help, okay? And hopefully, you've chosen someone who can help you, who can give you advice. So that's fine to do. Or go to your therapist. Everybody has a therapist. But talking in that way about something you're unhappy about and frustrated about, that's helpful. That's constructive. But just, complaining and grumbling and blaming and griping and, you've probably been on the receiving end of that, right? And it's not nice to hear those kind of words, and it probably really disturbs your mind. And you wish, just the other day, somebody was talking to me about that. A long-time friend, somebody they've known for like 40 years, and now they're both getting quite elderly. And this friend, every time they get together, is just complaining about this and about that and about, all these things going wrong with their body and their life. And, this person talking to me says it's just really hard to listen to that. And she doesn't know what to do. She wants to maintain friendship with that person, but it's difficult to know how to deal with that. So anyway, there are better ways of using our energy. Okay, another example. Timothy habitually vents his anger by playing video games, taking his hostility out on the fictitious characters on the screen. This, however, simply familiarizes his mind with anger and deepens his habit of acting out aggressively. The real problems come, of course, when he is so blinded by rage that he ceases to discriminate between fictitious and real people, and his habit simply takes over. Have you ever done that? I've never played those kind of video games, but they just look awful. One of my brothers is kind of addicted to them, and it's really scary. So is that a helpful way of dealing with anger? You know, you playing those games and imagining blowing up, these things on the screen. I think it just, increases your habituation with anger. Yeah, even if you're not killing real people, but just having the desire to kill and destroy is just, increasing that habit. So I don't think that is helpful. Some of our emotional habits were formed when, as children, we observed and imitated our parents' reactions to events. It doesn't mean it's their fault, because again, if we didn't have the seed of anger in our mind, then we wouldn't have, picked up on that habit. But we can certainly be influenced by, especially our parents. They are so important. They are like God. When we come into this world, they are everything. So we're very much influenced by them. In addition, our family, culture, and society conditioned us to think and feel in certain ways. Becoming aware of our past conditioning and the habits it formed inside us gives us the opportunity now as adults to recondition ourselves when necessary. For example, Henry's family members were indignant every time their ethnic group was slurred. He, therefore, was conditioned to think that this was an appropriate emotional reaction and became habituated to it. As an adult, he came to realize that he didn't need to be angry in order to oppose discrimination. By reframing challenging situations and generating compassion for others who were ignorantly prejudiced, he was able to remain calm, yet speak clearly and forcefully in difficult circumstances. So those are some examples of how we can have a habit of being angry and acting out our anger in certain ways. But if we, again, learn mindfulness and introspective awareness and practice those, then we can come to recognize that, some of these habits are not helpful, where they came from. It's also helpful to understand where they came from, why they're there. And that can also help us to undo them, unravel them, and realize, we don't have to continue doing those things, being that way, and we can develop new, more constructive, more beneficial habits. So habit, that's one of the factors, one of the conditions to get angry. Because if you have a long-term habit of getting angry and acting out your anger in a certain way, then it's so easy to slip into that, But habits can be changed. We can unlearn old habits and learn new habits. So, are there any questions about anything that's come up so far? I could keep reading and talking, but I want to give you a chance to ask questions. This is online, so we want them.
I got it. Thanks. I'm curious, something I've heard a lot is like anger is helpful in letting you know like what you value or care about, or that someone's wronged you, and so like that anger is a sign of that. I'm curious what the perspective is on that with this lens of anger isn't needed or can be removed.
Yeah, this is, I think, in psychology, that that view, I've come across that as well, and I think there's some truth to it. And actually, there is one, There's one book in particular, but there are probably other places as well, where he talks about this, the Dalai Lama, because he's often in dialogue with Western psychologists and scientists and educators and so on, and they're exchanging, what Buddhism says about this, what psychology says about that, and so on. And he will sometimes say that anger isn't always bad. And, examples like injustice. We hear about some injustice that's happening, or we observe somebody being mistreated. Especially a child or an animal that's, quite vulnerable. And anger comes up, like, this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening. So that kind of anger is actually connected with compassion. There's compassion there. We don't want that being or those people to be mistreated, to suffer. And so, I think that's an example of where anger, is a natural response to harm and injustice. But then the question is, what do we do about it? If we just let ourselves get angry and then act out of anger and go and do something violent, that wouldn't be helpful. And also, one effect of anger is that I just read this morning, there's research showing this, it affects our brain, and so we're not able to think clearly, and rationally. And so if you really want to help, it's much better to cool down your anger, find a way of, coming back to a place of calm and peace, and then you can think more clearly, what can I do? What will be helpful in this situation, rather than just blind rage, which might make things worse. If you just go in with anger, you might make the situation worse rather than better. So anger can be useful as a sort of trigger to act and bring about positive change or help in a situation where harm is being done. But cool down the anger, let your mind become calm and clear, think carefully what will be helpful, what will be constructive, not destructive. And also, if possible, compassion for all sides, not just the victim. It's easy to feel compassion for the victim, not so easy to feel compassion for perpetrators. That's harder. But they deserve compassion too. And if we can have compassion for them and think about what will be helpful for them, to stop doing what they're doing, change their ways, learn, and so on, then I think the situation will come out good for everyone. Was that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello, I think, this is not original, this is what I've heard from Venerable Chodron and others, the idea that anger is necessary to enact social change. And that actually came up the last time I was here for sharing the Dharma Day. And compassion is necessary, but anger is, like as you said, a side effect of compassion, or can be. And I think the anger arises when compassion and a feeling of powerlessness come together. I see the suffering that's being inflicted on other people, and I have compassion for that. And then I feel powerless to do anything about that. And the compassion and the powerless together can lead to violent rage and anger and things that are, of course, not helpful. And what I remember from one of the monastics the last time I was here is you don't need the anger, you just need the compassion. And for myself, I also have to question whether I am in fact powerless or whether I just don't have the power that I would like to have. I would like to have the power to make the guns disappear. I don't have that power, but I have the power to be kind, and I have the power to spend my time and money in constructive ways in response to the things that I see in the world. So I just wanted to make that point. It's not required.
Yeah, I mean, again, thinking of an ideal situation, a Buddha, someone who's highly accomplished, highly developed, and no longer has anger. If they see somebody being harmed, they're not going to just stand there and let it happen. So they have incredible compassion, and they will step in and do what they can to bring about, a positive, constructive situation. So you don't really need the anger in order to bring about positive changes. And compassion is a very, very powerful force. And yeah, I like what you said about powerlessness, that's an unpleasant experience as well, feeling powerless. But yeah, there's always something we can do. I can't stop the war in Ukraine. I would love to if I could, but I don't have that power. But I can still do other things. I can send money to organizations that are providing aid for the victims. I can write to Congress people. We do what we can. I can say prayers, meditate, and so on. So there's always something that can be done, and that really helps to overcome that sense of, I can't do anything, I'm hopeless, I'm powerless. Is there someone over here?
I just wanted to build on this theme too, because I was just thinking this notion of getting angry to affect change. This is kind of conventional wisdom, and I think conventional wisdom has gotten us in a lot of trouble too. So I think to this notion too that anger is letting you know something's wrong, right? Well, I mean, that I have to question that too, because in my experience, because anger is a habit, it's energy, and we can change that habit, but we could also create good habits. And I think by what Buddhism, like the Dharma, has helped me with, introspective awareness can help me recognize when something is wrong. Instead of being angry, just cultivating that mindfulness, that awareness that something's not right, but I don't have to be angry about it. I could just be aware of it, I think. So I think creating good habits to replace the bad ones has been very helpful for me. And that's all. And just real quick too, in terms of getting back to what you were saying about being born with the seed of anger, I just, thinking about, we come out of the womb screaming and crying, not happy and joyful. So it's not like, we're not even neutral, right? We're just screaming and crying. So.
Yeah, I don't remember. But I was
Good
probably
point.
screaming and crying. But, a friend of mine who had 3 children and mentioned that her last child was so peaceful, very, very, very peaceful. Hardly ever cried, always looking very content and happy. So depends on, what kind of karma, what kind of habits we brought with us from past lives. Did anyone else have a child that was not very angry and screaming and crying, but peaceful? Yes? It's possible. It's all relative. But so they say whatever, this is something else to consider, that we are creating habits now with what we do with our life. And we're going to continue in the next life. So what kind of person do we want to be in our next life? Do we want to be someone angry and always, getting back at others and so on? Very dissatisfied, unhappy? Or would we like to be someone who's kind and caring and happy and content? So how we deal with this life, what we do in this life, what kind of habits we create will show up in our next life and in other future lives. So, I've also met and heard of some natural-born vegetarians. Even from the time they were very young, they didn't want to eat meat. They just felt total aversion for eating meat. So I thought that is interesting. Even you're in a family of meat eaters, or the culture of meat eaters, and you don't want to eat meat. That's amazing. So that must be a carryover from past lives. Just like there's natural-born killers as well, unfortunately. So I don't think we want to be that. Nice to come out of the womb with a good state of mind, good habits, kindness, helpfulness towards others. So it's up to us. We are the ones who create our experiences. It's mainly our responsibility. That's good to be mature, kind, compassionate, considerate, both for ourselves and others. Look at what will bring the greatest happiness, both for ourselves and others, and then really put our energy into doing those things. I'm probably speaking to the converted, because you wouldn't be here if you if you didn't feel that way. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the talk, Venerable. I just wanted to share, it's pretty inspirational for me and encouraging. I got to attend one of the No Kings rallies in California. There were probably 5,000 people there. And it just gave me a lot of hope. People were, the messages were kind and compassionate. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't angry. It was people coming together in common values and ethics and respectful even of the things that were being protested. And very constructive speeches given. It was a peaceful, loving, kind, compassionate rally. And to me, that's very encouraging that we can see this in the masses, again, rising up to all this injustice and hostility that is coming from certain places, and people rising up in compassion and loving kindness. And gives me hope for humanity.
That's a good note to end on. Oh, one more.
There it is. I just think that social change comes about when people consciously decide to not become angry, but to take action.
It can be done without anger. Good to know that's possible. And the more people who do that, then there's that model, that example of how it is possible. That can inspire others. So we'll end there, and we'll have lunch in about 10 minutes. So thank you so much for your attention, your questions, your comments, sharing. So we'll dedicate.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Thank you, Venerable Khadro. And we can rise while Venerable Khadro leaves the hall. And then we'll invite Tammy up. She has something to share with both everyone here and also our audience online. And Tammy, oh, perfect.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll make it quick. I'm Tammy. I'm a semi-regular here, and somehow I always end up with the microphone when I'm the only thing between you, the bathroom, and lunch. So I think they want me to make it quick. Those of you who are familiar with the Abbey, you'll understand. But there are many new people here, which is fantastic. It's a great turnout. And folks out online who may not be so familiar with how these amazing humans live here. They don't live like we do. We sit in our easy chair, grab the phone and order something and it'll be delivered and we're good. But they live off of what's called the economy of generosity. Literally everything they need to sustain their life, from their tofu to their Tylenol to their socks to salt sheets, everything comes because of people like us. They'll give you anything. And they've already clearly given the shirts off their backs and traded them for robes. But we have to give to them so that they can keep doing what they do, so that we can hopefully have a better world. So quickly, there are many, many ways you can do this. You can give food because they have to eat. You can bring that on their website. They even have a wish list of items that they need. You can give your help. If you live nearby here, they have a Saturday every month, third Saturday of every month, where you can come and end up doing all kinds of stuff you never thought you'd do before. You might see a nun with a chainsaw if you're lucky. But you can come and help in person. If you come to stay, believe me, you'll help. If you come stay for a few days. And also, you can just give directly. Online, they have a link to donate. You can even pick where your money goes if you want. Also, in every entrance of, I think, each building here and the dining room, right, there's a box, it's called a dana, the donation, and there are cool-looking envelopes, and you can give in that way as well. Those of you who practice Buddhism don't need to hear anything about the merit that you will get by supporting this amazing community. But if you're not a practicing Buddhist and you don't understand, the way I see it is if you give to these folks, the very worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to support some people who are trying to create peace in a chaotic world.